to the Add Life to Yours podcast, brought to you by Dendro, where we bring the latest science-backed advice to help you live healthier. I'm your host, Karl, founder of Dendro, and today we're diving into something we all do, but rarely understand: sleep. What should you do each night to sleep better? How do our behaviors impact your sleep, and how can we actually improve them? Stick around and you'll find out why sleep should be at the top of your priority list when it comes to your health. Joining us today as our expert guest is Dr. Jatin Joshi, a physician, professor, and expert in evidence-based medicine. On top of all this, he's also the founder and chief medical officer of Supplement Technology, as well as the scientific advisor to Dendro. More info on both our backgrounds can be found in the show notes if interested. Now, let's get into it and unpack the science behind sleep health. Without further ado, hope you enjoy the episode and most importantly, learn something from it that helps you live healthier. Now shift it a bit more to the internal behaviors. I think you already touched on a bunch of good ones, but would love to hear a bit more about what are these actions that we can do to improve our sleep, or maybe just elaborate. You shared a bit on your personal wind down routine, but what are some other activities that might be good to help someone achieve that better night of sleep?
So I'm no psychologist, and everyone is different, but it was once mentioned to me about use of phone, because we keep bringing it back to devices and phones, but that's because it's become such an important part of our everyday routine, and whether it's scrolling emails or whatever. And someone once told me, never sit down or lie down in your bed with your phone. If you need to use the phone, stand up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a good reinforcement of what you do, because you're not going to stand there in the middle of your bedroom scrolling away. If you've got the willpower to do something like that, then you're like, okay, all right, it's bedtime, the phone is away. But it's things like that. We talked about, when we mentioned the environment, the dark, the cool, the shower, the routine, the no light, all of these things. And it's trying to facilitate that in all of those things. So I've not studied CBTI completely, but what you'll find is that these patterns of behavior are the ones that are going to have the most effect on you. And it's more about being consistent and sticking to those. The phone thing is the one that does it for me, but that's because that would be my weakness. I'd be checking emails, even though I have to get up in 7 or 8 hours. And there's no point in worrying about that now. If there's an emergency, someone will call you. But what do you do in terms of...
Yeah, my wind down routine, definitely it's an experimentation process, but I would say for me, as I've become more educated on this topic of sleep health, and by all means, it's still a continual learning process.
We're all learning.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, actually what helped me a lot was just blocking time in my calendar. Just like we block time for the gym, we block time to eat lunch or dinner, also blocking time dedicated to sleep. So blocking a goal for time in bed. Certainly my goal is always to have efficient sleep as possible. That doesn't always turn out to be the case. And then usually also blocking off some time, say 60 to 30 minutes before bed, to trigger and start that wind down routine. So usually that's, I guess, the initial sort of signal that, hey, it's time to start the wind down, to start trying to calm down, to down-regulate, get into that more rest and digest.
I guess I'm the same, because subconsciously I know that when the 9:30 news is coming on, hey, it's like I'm Pavlov's dog. I've been trained that I hear that noise, I know that, okay, I'm switching off all the other sounds. I'm asking the kids to try and keep it down a bit, making sure the bedroom's cool, maybe having that hot shower, that routine. My wife's much better than me. She does meditation and things like that, and it actually really helps. Studies have shown that people that are able to do things like meditation as part of their pre-sleep routine actually really helps them achieve that consistent quality sleep. It's not something I haven't done yet, but it's something I'm willing to give it a try. But it's working for me, what I do, knowing that, like you said, 30 to 60 minutes before, the same thing every single day. My brain suddenly realizes, okay, it's time for bed. So he's going to do this for 20 minutes, he's going to do this for 10 minutes, the phone's away, he'll read for 15 to 20 minutes, and then he's asleep. And it happens every day because we've trained ourselves to be like that every day.
That makes sense. You just start to have that pattern recognition, create that habit stack, and basically, it's actually in a lot of ways you sort of have this like menu of different actions and things you can try out to improve your sleep, and it's just a matter of experimenting and picking which ones work best. So for me, I guess, to complete the wind down, you have that initial signal, then usually I'm taking a sleep supplement, obviously quite biased, and taking Dendro, the sleep health supplement that we worked on and designed. Again, it's just helpful. Not only is it nature-inspired and science-backed ingredients in a very convenient liquid format, that's quite bioavailable, but it's also just this repetition of it's one of the many actions that I do to prep my mind and body for sleep. Then after that, usually I'm taking a hot shower, again, to try and relax, usually to dim the lights, a bit of I guess, this warm-up to cool down, a strategy that you discussed, and then I would say pretty typical after that. Brush my teeth. Depending on my sleepiness levels, maybe I read a book. I haven't perfected not looking at the phone, although I'm trying my best. I think I'm going to have to implement that standing up rule that you mentioned.
It becomes difficult.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to really test yourself of is it worth it? Because usually if you're in bed, you're reluctant to get up out of bed just to grab your phone. And yeah, and in most cases, I guess it depends on your profession. Potentially you're a doctor and you need to be on call and access your phone. But for the most people, I think it's probably fair to say they don't necessarily need to have their phone right by their bedside.
Absolutely.
So I think that will be a new action to test out. And yeah, usually I found that that's worked really well for me so far. I won't sit here and say I do it perfect every night. Far from that. But I do try my best, and I just creating a bit of this structure and wind down routine, like you mentioned, has really helped me a lot achieve, better sleep. And I think one other thing I would add to that, to the extent I am using a wearable, and I don't always use a wearable because I don't like to get too obsessed with, the daily scores. I care more about like the weekly, monthly trends. But to the extent I do track my sleep, then sometimes I'll look at that and also, put in my calendar, hey, this is how much I slept, and see did I hit my goal that I originally laid out.
So how's it working out for you now with that routine, now using your supplement? Are you finding that you've achieved a level or that you're achieving an improvement that you thought you would?
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's not perfect by any means, but I'm trending in the right direction, up and to the right, and my sleep is getting better. I feel like I'm falling asleep faster. Staying asleep has always been more of a struggle for me, and I find I'm staying asleep more consistently. Being mindful of how much liquid I intake before bed, things like that. But also just in making sure I'm doing non-work related activities that calm me down.
Yeah.
Because I find, it's like you said, if you just check that email or depending on the content you look at when you're doom scrolling, which, you don't have full control. The algorithm has control of what it shows you. Even if I fall asleep quick, it's when I wake up randomly that my mind is much more likely to turn on, as opposed to just quickly wake up, maybe go to the restroom, you name it, and then fall back asleep.
So then do you find with this new routine, this improvement you're getting, are you able to put in that consistent go to sleep, wake up time? And are you woken by your alarm still, or is it something you find yourself waking up just before or around the alarm time?
Yeah, that's a good way to frame it, is actually historically, when I think I put less of a focus on my sleep health, I was usually waking up to the dreaded alarm, and it actually wasn't one alarm. It was usually, I'm that annoying person that puts 5 to 10 alarms.
Oh my God.
So that used to be the case, but yeah, I never thought about like that. The truth is now I usually wake up just before my alarm, or at least I actually get up on the first or second alarm.
Isn't that interesting? Because I found that exactly the same way. So my daily alarm is for 5:55 a.m. And in the past, maybe I wasn't the 10 alarms needed, but I was at least definitely a couple. But nowadays I find myself actually waking up. And then I look at the clock and it says 5:52, and I'm thinking, 3 minutes. And it feels so good because you know that there's a level of work that's gone into it. All this stuff that we've been doing over the past weeks, you know, supplementing ourselves correctly, sleeping conditions correctly, environment, habits and all of that. And that's actually a really good measure of how effective that's being, because we talked about it earlier, you want to be able to have that full sleep cycle. You want to plan your sleep cycle so that you're waking up, you know, after your REM sleep, just in the early stages of another cycle. And when you're doing that with an alarm, you're naturally waking up. You know you've been successful in that.
Yeah, I guess I take it by the, was it 5:45 a.m. alarm that you just mentioned. You're obviously an early bird chronotype.
Yes, I am, much to the chagrin of my family, especially my wife, who's most definitely an owl. She'd rather be up until 1 a.m. and then waking up at 10. But even with her work, she needs to get up at, you know, 6:30 or 7. But it's more of a struggle for her because of her chronotype. But for me, I feel at my best. I feel at my best in the morning when I've had that restorative night's sleep. And it's the same thing you say to people. There's nothing better than that feeling of when you've had that great night's sleep. You feel ready to do anything. You feel ready to conquer the world. It's just that around 10 o'clock or 10:30, I'm done.
Yeah, it's time to reset the mind and body.
Absolutely.
And prepare for the next
My
day.
adenosine is pouring out everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I couldn't agree more, but as a night owl, certainly I'm shifted later in the clock, so usually I'm going to bed around, call it midnight, maybe a little bit later, and then trying to wake up, you know, call it, you know, 9 in the morning
but
or
if
so.
that works for you, and if it works for anyone else, that's what we were. And that's why that second C, the chronotype thing, is so important. Because if you are that night owl, forcing you into that pigeonhole of getting you up at 6 a.m., it's not going to do anyone any favors. So that's really good.
Yeah, no, it's not setting you up for success the next day. And I think also you mentioned, I think at one point, like, you know, it feels so good. You set yourself up for success with your night routine, for, you know, a better morning routine, a better rest of the day in general. In a lot of ways, like, yeah, we should think about sleep as more of a proper activity, just like how we think about going to the gym, preparing a healthy meal, taking time to meditate. You know, we should very much think about sleep like that. And there's so much we can do to prep our mind and body for success each night and be essentially better at sleeping. You know, it's a skill in many ways.
Like when we go to the gym, I have my routine. I have my protein shake. I put some creatine in it. I've got workout clothes on. I stretch. I warm up, and then I do everything. But that's natural. You'd think that. If I didn't do that,
it'd be weird.
I'm hurting myself. So that's a really good way to look at it. So if we use that mindset with sleep and think of it as a process, the most important process that you're going through, you will set yourself up for success.
That makes sense. All right, a big topic that I would like to cover here. We'll have to resist to not get too lost in it, but it is that of supplements. So supplements, you know, I think it's one of the most popular sleep remedies in general. I guess there's supplement for everything, and it's very tempting to reach for a supplement and think it's going to solve your problem. How I'd recommend we frame this conversation to be most useful would be maybe just a brief overview of, more generally, how should people think about supplements as a tool to be used for better sleep, and then we can spend some time jumping into maybe a bit more of a lightning round format to discuss some of the most popular supplements out there in the market today.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, one of the things that I always like to talk about, and because of my background, because of everything I do, I've dedicated a large part of my working and professional life to evidence-based medicine. And what I mean by that is that I'm the kind of person that is agnostic to any ingredient, drug, pharmaceutical, whatever. I do not care what it is. I care that it passes a level of evidence. If someone's going to take something for sleep, it has to work for them. It has to be safe. It has to be effective at a certain dose. It has to satisfy all of these things. And it has to have been tested. The ingredients, the raw ingredients, have to be shown through clinical trials that, hey, this works for people to sleep on. And I think, unfortunately, the supplement industry has had a bit of a bad rep because a lot of products have been put out there which don't necessarily have that evidence base. And when people are given products where they may not work, or they may be slightly unsafe, or they will lose their trust in that. And I think with everything that someone is given, both pharmaceutically or supplementally, even as food, there has to be evidence behind it. And if we hold ourselves to the highest levels and standards of evidence, then all that can be is good for our consumer, because they will be taking something that works for them, is shown to work for them, and the evidence shows that it works for them. And this is especially so in the sleep category, because sleep, as we've talked about while we've been doing this, is so important. But there's still this feeling amongst people that I need that short-term fix. What can I do? Let me just take something, I'll just fall asleep. But that's not what's going to do it. Remember, don't think of your sleep as that act of falling asleep. You want to think of sleep as being able to fall asleep gently, naturally, but also having that great quality of sleep. You're not waking up 4 or 5 times at night. There's not these micro wake-ups. You're comfortable. You've got great sleep cycles. Your slow wave sleep predominantly dominating in the first half, your REM sleep in the second half. You're getting that. Your physical restoration, your mental restoration. And the most important thing, when you wake up, that you feel great. So it was really interesting when you were talking about your wearables and looking at them and seeing that trend of sleep and everything. I think that's great, and wearables have come a long way. But I think that the most important thing is that how you feel the next day. Because the wearable can say to you, oh, you've had a terrible night's sleep. Okay, yeah, I know that. I feel terrible. That's why.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more about that. So when it comes to supplements, it's something you want to choose and believe in, something that's got a rigorous amount of evidence behind it that shows that it works, using the right ingredients in the right amounts. And when we're talking about the kinds of supplements that people take, that's also really important, because most people don't know that supplements actually have been around for close to 100 years. And most of the ones that people are aware of are those horrible big tablets that they're swallowing. But people don't realize that most of that tablet is full of a filler. A commonly used one used to be titanium dioxide. And I always tell people it's the thing they paint the lines with at Wimbledon. They look at me weirdly like, what do you mean? I go, yeah, you know those white lines. That's the same thing that the majority of the tablet is made of. You want to give people, and people want to take something that is comfortable, pleasurable to take, but that works, that is bioavailable. We always talk about bioavailability. There's no point in taking the greatest product in the world if your body can't utilize it. So it's got to be given in a form where it is utilizable. And that's why I think with the advance in supplemental technology and with liquids coming into play, liquids have much greater bioavailability than some tablets in certain occasions. And I think that move to that, and that move to a more evidence science-based regime with supplements is something that's great for the industry and great for consumers out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. A ton of points that I'm keen to dig on a bit deeper. Actually curious though, you mentioned capsules, but another very popular form is powders. What are your thoughts on powders?
So powders are fine if depending on how they're reconstituted. So sometimes there are powders which are then put into capsules and people take them. And essentially what they are then is then just ground down solids or tablets. And you're not going to get much better bioavailability with those than you would with a liquid. But if it's a powder that's reconstituted to become a liquid, then you move up that hierarchy, of bioavailability and ease of use and everything. So powders going into liquids are definitely an improvement. Are they the ultimate way that we can do it? Possibly not. But remember, everything, and we've talked about this throughout this conversation, everything has to be a happy medium, what's acceptable to someone. Because if you're not going to take the product, if it's going to sit on your bedside cabinet or in your bathroom and you don't use it, then there's no point. It could be the greatest thing in the world, but if you don't use it, it does not matter.
No, it makes sense. And I guess, probably oversimplifying a bit, because I'm sure also by ingredient, the form, bioavailability is going to matter, but you kind of have capsules, and then on average, the bioavailability is likely lower than, say, powders. You get a bit better with powders, and then even better with liquid formats.
So what you'll find is, and that's a really important thing to talk about, is that various ingredients, because you could have, I'm sure we'll talk magnesium, a really important supplement, because our diets don't have enough, and actually most people do sometimes have a deficiency in magnesium, especially as we get older. But there's lots of forms of magnesium. There are some forms that are really, quite cheap, and you might have it in your magnesium tablet. Hey, this magnesium tablet's got this much magnesium.
Some crazy amount.
Yeah, I say, 2,000 milligrams of magnesium in every, who knows.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the best kind, because when it comes to bioavailability, different forms of different elements are bioavailable in different ways. So what you have to look for is that the company that you get anything from, that supplement that you take, is using the evidence to say, hey, we're doing this because this is the best form that we can get. And you will be better off using a better form, even if it's in a lower amount, than using a poor form in a large amount. So always be, I'm not giving homework for our listeners, but be mindful of what you're taking and really investigate those ingredients.
Yeah, and even I'm thinking of the example of magnesium that you just provided, and it gets further complicated depending on, of course, this is geography specific, the regulations.
Absolutely.
Because, it's not always the case necessarily that the form has to be disclosed. So, maybe it says magnesium in the nutritional label, and you got to dig into the fine print to understand that it's, an oxide or citrate or biglycinate.
Yeah, and so therefore you would actually want to see that if your supplement company is actually forthcoming with the information, because they believe, they're happy for you to see it. They're not hiding it anywhere. It's not in the small print of, you can only get that. They're happy to show you that it's this form of magnesium or whatever, because they know it's the best kind. So again, if you're able to educate yourself on it, that's fine, but look for those ones with those high quality ingredients that are effective for you or for your population.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways it sounds so simple. The right ingredients, and then you need to make sure you're absorbing them, so they need to be in the right form.
In the right amount as well.
Exactly, and once you're absorbing them, you need to make sure it's the right amount, and the right amount is going to be a clinically relevant or proven amount. None of this pixie dusting sprinkles of ingredients just to be able to list them. That unfortunately is commonplace.
Yeah, and that's why I really like the liquid, because for some people, my wife is quite small. She weighs probably 40 kilograms. So for her to take some, she may not need as much. With liquid ingredients, you'll find your happy medium. Maybe I only need this much, maybe I need slightly more. You can't do that with a tablet. People can say, well, can't you just break a tablet in half? Yeah, you can break the tablet in half, but what most people don't realize that it's not, the active ingredient isn't uniformly distributed through a tablet. So you break it in half, you may get the bit with all of the ingredient in it or the bit without. And it's difficult to do that, whereas it's not so difficult to take a little bit more liquid, take a little bit less, and seeing how it is for you. So you're right. It's bioavailable, easy to use, right quantity, right dose, and then seeing that effect on yourself. Because people, we've been talking about this, and we're asking people to take control of their sleep, make it as part of their routine. So whether you're one of those 1 scoops of protein or 2 scoops of protein before your exercise, think of sleep that way. Are you a small amount? Do you need more? And take control of your sleep matters like that as well. Makes
sense. So very much one tool in the toolkit to be paired with some of these other behavioral modifications, environmental modifications. And it's by no means this magic pill, this magic powder. It doesn't exist.
We're all looking for that panacea, that magic pill that will just do everything for us. And look, I wish there was something like that. But unfortunately, there isn't. Okay, so, but what you'll find is that these modifications that you're doing, they're not difficult ones. They're not ones that are really going to put you out, that are going to really change what you're having to do. They're things that will actually help you, positively impact you, and are not difficult to institute. It may be difficult the first couple of times just because it's a new routine. Any new routine is difficult, but once it gets going, you'll find it's second nature and it's very easy to accomplish.
All right, well, that's it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it and most importantly, learned something along the way. Ideally, that you'll remember and be able to incorporate into your daily health routine. A big, huge shout out to Jatin, our expert guest, as well as you, the viewer, for making it all the way through, showing a real commitment to your health. Also, a quick ask from our side, whatever platform you found us on, if you could just give us a quick like, subscribe, review, feedback, you name it, we really appreciate it. Last but not least, thank you, Dendro, for sponsoring this content. Although we try and keep it as ad-free as possible, it ultimately does come with some time and monetary commitment. So thank you, Dendro, for providing that. For those unaware, Dendro is a sleep health platform that we're currently building, starting with our flagship Sleep Health Supplement Night Restore. For more info on that, check out our website, dendrohealth.com, or check out the links directly in the show notes below. Anyways, with that, hope to catch you in the next one. Don't forget to stay healthy, and let's add life to yours.